somebody who's not afraid to do the scream. You heard the voice of Greg Walker, the wolf, back.
Pew, pew, pew.
Yeah.
Frequent podcast guest.
Yeah.
I will say every time we don't have a guest, Jordan's like, let's bring Greg on. Jordan, he's here for it.
Can you turn that down to my ears just a little
We
bit?
got you,
That's
Wolf.
right there.
That's right. Thanks for listening to this Backstage with the Simple Church podcast. My name's Evan Semanco. Josh Mitchell, co-host. First one with the Wolf. You're in for a treat.
Yeah.
Josh,
My boy,
You don't know what you're in for.
I was trying to figure out which one.
Oh,
was
yeah.
so we could
Thank
turn
you.
it down.
Is it better?
Yeah, that's
That's
better.
good. That's
Perfect.
right.
I
love
scream, so I'm already loud. So.
it. Adjust your volume at home, however you're listening.
Yeah, you're probably going to have to.
Greg,
Yes.
biography, longtime part of Simple Church, longtime friend of Justin's, been
Yeah.
around, band leader, co-leader? What's the...
Man, we're
You're
all
part of the
three
band team.
leaders.
There
yeah.
you go.
Yeah, yeah.
Band team.
Yeah.
Big fan. Tell us a little
But
bit about
Christy
you.
is full-time as an accountant, is that right?
Financial
No one
something?
knows what she I call her the accountant. When I found out she was the accountant, and I did not find out until I came on staff or shortly before.
Right.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know that.
Yeah, you're smart, Josh, because that's the first thing I find out when I got somewhere is who's the accountant.
Who's got the money?
You know what I'm saying? You got to figure that out quick, right?
But Greg, we're in this series called Asking for a Friend. Justin's been going through answering questions on Sunday mornings. We have,
yeah.
I think, over 80 now that have been submitted, so we couldn't get to all of them. But we wanted to bring in Greg because not just a musician, not just a law enforcement, seminary trained, educated.
Well, actually, it's from East Texas Baptist University.
Okay, there we go.
I can go through
Bible
the-
college. Come on.
I can
Give
go
us your
through
bona
it, though,
fides.
you know what I
Bona
mean?
fides.
So first off, glad to be here. Sorry I'm late.
No,
I'm like 30 minutes late. I
The
apologize.
audience didn't know. You don't have to apologize.
all the time.
I know
You were
they don't, but I'm
keeping us
just
safe.
saying it,
Just
keeping it
guitar
public. I'm just
players.
trying to be real.
Keeping us safe.
Yeah, so I am one of the music directors. There's not really, or worship leaders. I don't know what the proper term is today.
You don't have a business card to put it on.
I mean, we used to say the choir minister. I mean,
were you ever a
you-
choir
yeah.
minister?
No,
Oh,
but I'm
okay.
just saying.
That's
you
what
know
they
what I
called
mean?
it. Right, right.
The
Music
so,
ministry.
Yeah, so we kind of partner up. It's better that way. You don't want to leave. To me, when you're talking about management, when you talk about the music part, you don't want to leave anything to just one person. You want to spread it out a
Takes
little
a
bit.
team.
Well, the other deal is too, man, is not just perspectives, but you're not always there, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
and you want a chance to take a break. So, you need to be able to bounce stuff off.
And some of y'all are better at certain parts of it and
Yeah, that's
arranging
exactly
and working
right.
the volunteers
That's
and all
exactly
that stuff.
right. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, so we
It's
work
a team
together.
approach.
So
Love
I went to
East Texas.
East Texas Baptist University. I graduated with a BA in religion, which
Okay.
so basically that degree really is like contemporary interpretation, the sociology of religion, the psychology, sociology of Christianity, the Koine Greek, hermeneutics,
Yep. Oh yeah.
eschatology studies,
All kinds.
a lot of
stuff.
papers.
That's it.
Yeah, that stuff. And then I planned.
And I think that's just pause real quick. If
Go
you
ahead.
know Greg, if you've seen Greg, I think that surprises people because
It
I don't
should.
think that's your reputation. Really,
It's not.
You're fun. You're outgoing. You're energetic, and that's not
It's
the
not.
typical person that does hermeneutics.
Well, I know what my reputation is with my wife, so I
Oh,
got to break
okay,
the
go ahead, tell us
story.
that.
I got to break the story down. So, I'm lucky in my career because I've been able to go across a lot of places, but mainly in the South, like Louisiana, Mississippi, some of Texas, and teach what I do as a career. And one thing I do is I always try to record myself so I can go back and look and see what I could do better in a lesson or how to speak. You know what I mean? And I usually get someone else to critique. So we were at, my wife and I were laying in the sack and we were watching the old YouTube and I turned on worship night because she wasn't there. And so I went to the part where I was speaking. And without getting deep in, I was being critical, whatever. And if none of you, I don't know how many people really, they probably don't. But if you're a listener and you know Jessica, this is not going to be a surprise. So we're sitting there and I'm looking and I'm watching. I'm like, man, dude, I look mean. I mean, I got to do something. I just, the only reason anyone's going to listen to anything is because they're going to be like, man, you better hear that. That dude's coming off the stage. And that's not true, man. I mean, you know what I mean? And so my wife, she's awesome, dude. She comes off, she goes, no, you don't look mean. You look like that mechanic in the neighborhood that can't fix nothing. But you don't want to be mean to him because he's offering to put plugs in your car.
He's trying to be nice.
But then you tell him, hey, man, thanks, dude, but I'm going down there to Roundtree. They got it. And
Appreciate it.
And you look like you're smoking a cigarette going, it's all good. I put them plugs in. But your whole front yard is full of cars. You know what I mean?
What a specific, weird.
If you do, my wife and I laugh a ton.
Oh,
so,
that's
yeah.
awesome.
So it was good. So I owe everyone an apology for looking mean and like I neighborhood mechanic.
Well, yeah, I just don't think people think pastor. They picture you most of the time. And you were my middle school pastor.
Yeah, that's
long
true.
time go back. You've been in student ministry. You were there, and now you're back at Simple Church. You've gone through some stuff, and we'll put links to your past podcast of going through. If you want to go back and hear more about Greg, he's great. You're going to fall in love with him today if you haven't heard him before. We've had you on a couple times, different things, but today, Greg, answering some of these questions.
Yeah,
we brought in the big guns.
So a little background too is that I was going to go to seminary. I actually went to Dallas partly to do that, but I became a Christian in 1987. I have been.
They weren't born out. You don't know when they were born.
Yep. Nope. Yep. You're right. Is what I'm saying. Yeah, but nope, they weren't born.
No.
Yeah.
1992.
Lord, I was already on the road. So, in 1987, when I became a believer, I had a great mentor. His name was Mick Knight, and you can go back to one of the earlier podcasts with Scott.
Yep.
And I talk about Mick. Mick really mentored me at the time about evangelism. I learned a lot from him. And then after that, there was a guy that took a bunch of us guys under their wing. One of them was Dr. Combs, and another one was Jimmy Hefner. And they really helped us out biblically. And that's what steered me toward the college part. Well, when I was getting out, I had friends that were already in seminary. And one of my friends, Kenny Johnson, and another mentor of mine, Dr. Bob Utley, who I still follow and I talk to every once in a while. In fact, I talked to him 2 months ago. Just told me that seminary might not be the way to go unless you really want to teach. Now, pastors feel like they have to go.
Right.
But
we're talking to Brian Reed next week, and he's kind of his story.
Yeah, but you don't have to go. I mean, it's one of those deals where, is it good? Well, yes, it can be, but it depends on where you want to go. But you also have to understand, and this is with anything. This is not just being a pastor.
Yep.
This is, any career field. As a pastor, when you go to these seminaries, they mold you the way they want to, right? And it is on purpose, and I don't think it's like, I don't know that it's out of deceit.
Right.
And I don't know that it's
good
out
intention.
They're just, it is good intentions. They do. And so there's things that you don't know. And so they knew me at the time, because I've always been
at GBU?
I've always been kind of a rebel. And so they were more like, look, man, just keep studying. We'll give you stuff. Just ask us and keep going. So I've been studying for about 30 years. So even though I don't have the piece of paper.
Right, to show it.
Yeah.
And that's why I think you're a lifelong learner. I think that's what I would say.
I'm a critical thinker. There's no doubt. And I got taught the basics, and then I've gone on from there. And for, 12 years of my life, I was a claimed atheist. And there were people that were close to me that said it was because of the education. No, it wasn't because of the education. It was because of the way I looked at people and put them on a pedestal instead of looking at the real thing, which is Christ. But it was meant to happen. I wouldn't take any of that back. Yeah.
And spiritual bypass is kind of the thing now.
And now when I look at it, it wasn't even them. It was the choice I made because my focus was in religion, right? And I don't mean religion in knowing, but religion in relationships with people that were religious. And, God bless them. I don't think they meant wrong, but we're all fallible. And I think when you put fallible people way up high, you're always going to be disappointed.
They're not Jesus. Yeah.
Amen.
Looking back now, from 52 years old and then looking way back then, it was really incredibly selfish of me to claim that. But I used my knowledge to actually go against Christianity. And in that time, I still studied, but in a different way. And so in about, I think it was January 2012, the Lord brought me back, saved my wife. And so, it's been a journey since then. And then 4 years ago, I think, I hadn't kept up with it. Justin allowed me to be a part of the music program. And I really I don't mind doing this, but I get nervous because I know how people are, right? And I don't consider myself a pastor. I just know this stuff. I enjoy doing that. And if I can help, I'll help. But I think it's scary to, I think it's scary to be, I think it's scary. Well,
because you open yourself up for criticism.
Well, it's not the criticism part that I care about because, man, I mean, there are godly men who are way smarter than I am and have been doing this for 50 years. And they still argue about stuff, but they're godly people, right? So, I mean, it's not the criticism. It's and again, I'm not saying this in arrogance, but this happens. It's It's being put up here.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
That's what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, and
That's
I'm not.
exactly
I don't look at myself, and I hope that no one. I don't care if it's one person puts me up. I am not.
You're just the guy out there fixing cars in the.
That's all I'm doing. I'm the
In the
dude that's going
driveway.
to take a 5/8 cents wrench and
No,
fix your-
Brian Reed calls it ivory towers. Right?
Yes.
The people
And
seem
we
like
do,
they're-
man.
Yeah. And we like as Christians, I think, to follow someone, to believe and trust in someone, and that is human nature. But at the same time, it's putting them on a pedestal that they're infallible, that they're perfect, that they have these different things. And I feel that pressure. Anytime you get up and speak, Josh, you're newer to this,
Yep.
you're doing it. It's like, I don't want to say something that messes somebody up. I don't want to say something wrong, but I also don't believe what I believe 15, 20 years ago when I started doing this. And you evolve and grow.
Well, I think
and
the
it's-
other thing, I think that's about, I think you should call, and we're going to talk about that too. I think that in the Christian walk, you should be a critical thinker. I think that's been the problem for years and years and years and years and years. That I think it's more of, yes, you say that, but in public, sometimes things don't go the right way, or someone says whatever, and then they say the cancel culture deal is real. And so, and even though the truth will always come out, if you've never been through anything like that, where it disrupts everything in your life, including your family and your personal,
You don't
it's
know.
hard
Yeah.
to deal with. So I think that's the deal.
Sure.
I think that's it. And I know that, I know Justin knows that. I know there's many people that do. You guys understand that. So I think that's where I'm coming from.
Yeah. And what
Right.
kind of sparked all this and having you on today was talk about hell.
Yeah,
and
talk
it's a
about hell.
controversial subject.
Yeah, it is.
Justin did a great message. If you missed
He
it,
did.
go
He did a
back on
great
demand.
message.
The link's in the show notes. You talked to Justin some about it. And so people send in questions about hell.
Yeah.
We're in this Asking for a Friend series, and it's something that a lot of people wonder about and talk about.
Well, there's
Wanna
two
know.
questions I want to answer because I saw two questions that I really want to answer
Before
on
we get
front
into the
end.
meat.
Before we get into the meat. The first one is, and I don't know that if it was covered really properly or not, but I'd like to talk about, I think it was like question number 1. I don't remember quite, but I do remember.
Oh, I know it word for word.
The question said,
Why is Justin's head so big? And it's the only person who signed their name. They're anonymous questions. But
Yeah.
Hannah Spence wants to know, why is Justin's head so
so
big?
I think you got to approach that like physically, right?
Okay.
Mentally,
Oh, wow.
Yeah, mentally.
Spiritually?
and then like emotionally. That's not just a one question.
The layers.
If you're Hannah,
How
if
long have you known Justin?
I've known Justin for 30 years.
Yep.
We have bled together,
Are you sure?
laughed
It's longer than
together.
that.
It may be longer than that, but
Because 30 years ago was
As long as we've been alive,
Yeah.
Jordan. Heard it.
1995.
yeah.
So you're
No,
going
it was
on
way longer
40.
than that. Yeah, it's way longer than that. We have fought, laughed, definitely cried, served together. He is my and Daniel's brother, even though we're not blood.
We're in Open Eyes, the band. Justin
Yep, we're in the
toured
Open
with.
Eyes. We spent a lot of time together, and he's been so gracious to me.
So you would know better than just about anyone in the world.
Well, maybe I don't know
Why
more
his
than his
head so
wife
big?
or his
Well,
brother,
Yeah.
or even his kids.
That's true.
He may have changed some habits. I don't know that. but I would say physically, Hannah, you're going to have to ask his grandpappy, and I don't think that you're going to be able to do that because he's not here.
This
So I
side
can't
of heaven.
answer
Right.
that. The question of why his head is so big. If you're talking about it physically, you may want to ask his brother. I know he can't wear a hat. And the deal is, I told him that I was going to talk
also
about this, so he
identify
knows.
with that.
Yeah. So, and he's kind of conscious about that, even though he makes fun of himself, and we all are.
He
We all
wants
have
to start
conscious about
Big Head
stuff.
Ministries, him and Brian Reed.
Okay,
Josh.
I recently joined as well.
that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Y'all can reach some folk.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Can y'all really not wear a hat?
it's very few hats. Snapbacks not happening.
Wasn't it like
Yeah.
3 7/8 or like a
Yeah,
4
no.
and a half or?
Easily
Like
an
an 8,
easily
8 and a
an
half.
8, easily an 8.
That's a
Yeah,
large
there
hat.
he is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you're talking about not emotionally, but if you're talking about mentally, I would say that everyone is arrogant in their own right. So I think it's bold to put your name out there and ask that question to begin with, because
I think it was mostly the physical.
yeah.
Because
So
she's the one that
if it-
actually puts the makeup powder on his
Oh,
head
I
for
got
pre-show.
you. Because if it's the mental part, I would say that we all have an ego, right? And not only that, my boy did, even though he won't take credit for this, he did start this church. And from a material standpoint or a business standpoint, it has been successful.
Absolutely.
And you can say that, well, you can't be arrogant. Well, it also, you shouldn't let women talk in church either. So, I mean, you know what I mean? So, I mean, if we're talking about, like, if you're going to be direct about not being, you're going to talk about the Bible and what the Bible says.
You can use it and weaponize it to say a lot of things.
You can go to Titus and see where it says women shouldn't talk. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't believe that. I'm just saying it because there are some people out there that would say that that's arrogance and you shouldn't be arrogant. Well, if you want to start pulling stuff out, let's come down here and sit down. We'll be glad
at each other.
Yeah, we'll just throw them all day long.
That's called the internet. We get in the comment section of stuff. There's a lot of people on there.
So, ladies, I love y'all, and I'm not meaning that. You know what I'm saying?
And then what's the second one you want to get to before we get to business?
Oh, the other one was I saw a question about the band. That the band we play different songs all the time.
Yes.
And it confuses people. Could we play some of the same songs?
Well, real quick, if you
go
didn't grow up in Simple Church, a lot of churches, they play the same set list, same multiple worship songs,
like 12
weeks, months at a time.
Songs they have in their rotation.
Right. And they do them often and a lot. And it's a style, it's a choice, but we choose not to do that.
Well, here's the deal. We also do, though. So, I'm not trying to step on you, Bubba, but
I get you.
We do. So, if you go back and look on the YouTube,
they're all there.
You'll see that we do a lot of the same worship style songs or Sunday morning type songs every Sunday. I mean,
we only
usually
do two.
Yeah, we only do two.
So that I think is a big change for people.
It is, and I think you also, for the person that asked the question, remember this: the mission of Sunday is not for you. The mission for Sunday is for those that don't show up, or maybe they just are tired of church, or maybe their grandmammy said, "Hey, come up in here." And check this out, and they did it. Yeah, with the old flabby arms. Yeah, I agree with Justin on that. Bring them back, baby. Keep it thick.
Lose a recipe.
Keep it thick, boys. Keep it thick.
Where the grandmammies with the cakes? Why ain't y'all making cakes no more?
We're losing recipes.
Yeah, we're losing all the generational recipes. Come on now, slide some of those to my wife. So so I would say that we do play the same songs. You may not like the same songs. Sorry, but we're mission specific. And if you'll come to a worship night when we have them, I think you will be pleased.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what I mean? If you never tried
so
that.
Yeah, we're trying, but that's the mission, and we stick to the mission. And I appreciate you asking the question.
That's right. And again, we're not a perfect church. We're not saying it's the only way. We're not saying it's the right way.
Right.
There are other great churches that do it different ways. And if you like a certain style, we are totally okay with that.
That's right.
But we do have a heart and to reach people. And that's why you're going to hear Jelly Roll and you're going to hear the secular songs.
That's
right.
Because
when we post them online, people get in the comments and want to say stuff now. And we got picked up by a Christian comedian. So we're getting all these Theo bros is what they call them. That are going through. And some of them delete. Some of them we can leave up there and laugh. But it's just, it's this whole thing of stirring it up. And people are very confident they're right. And it's a pride issue, I think, a lot of times.
Yeah.
That it's the only way.
Yeah.
And we've never said we're the only way. We're a way.
It is a way.
Yeah.
It is.
And worship night is where you can find the lawnmower mechanic.
That's right.
That's right. Come see him talking. Watch the video. We'll put the link to the one. Get a little taste of it if you.
We ought to get you like a denim jumpsuit.
You got a
on it.
I'll do that.
He came on the pre-show one time in a jumper.
That's true.
Y'all
I put some grease on it. And have me one of them candy Marlboros.
Get one of them. Put your big old Van
Candy
snow boots.
Candy Winstons. Yeah.
Oh, the Winston.
Oh gosh. Sorry, Greg.
All right,
we're gonna narrow in on these questions here, and I want to start and preface by saying this for anybody listening at home. This was something I listened to at a podcast this week, and I thought it really summed up well what we're trying to do, because we're not saying everything you're saying today is the only thing, the right way, the expert, like you said, don't come from a tower. But I had never heard this before. You probably have. You're smarter than me. They talked about rabbis, and in the Jewish culture in Jesus' time, they would celebrate not knowing something. When they would get to a question and somebody would ask something they didn't know, they would actually rejoice because it was the chance to learn something new.
Well, if it was in their sect.
Yeah.
Not outside of that.
Okay.
Right. So don't get that confused.
Sure.
Because they were better than everybody else.
All right. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But it was this, I think it's supposed to be in the purest form, the humility of learning things that they didn't know.
Right.
And that's what you're asking these questions. People want to know. It's one perspective. It's one voice. We're going to link resources. We're going to do books.
Yeah.
We're going to
put a bunch of resources. They're not exhaustive, but they are some.
But never will be.
Yeah.
But if you are looking for a place to start, if you have questions about these things, we want to help guide you to some things that have helped Greg, that have helped the church, that have helped us to frame what we believe, and then continue the conversation. We don't want you to take one thing Greg says today out of context and go and like.
We're going to make sure that you don't take it out of context.
That's right. We're going to try. People do. You're going to do your best.
Yeah.
But all of this is just we're trying to all wrap our heads around it and learn. And ultimately, and Jordan, we kind of picked on him, was like, what is all of this about? What is the point of all this? And it's to help us to how we treat other people, how we live,
Right.
the fear and anxiety of worry. Like, I grew up in a church where I was scared everybody's going to get raptured and I was going to hell and I was going to get left behind. And it's this fear
Right.
based, and Justin talked about it with the message.
Which that's a whole another conversation.
Absolutely.
That
Another
you could
day.
do 5 podcasts with.
We'll file it away
real.
for later.
That'll be a series in itself.
That's it. So we're going to get into some of these questions. We're going to just have a conversation. We're
All
going to
right.
chat and do it. So, Greg, do you want to start at the beginning of the questions I sent you? I know you kind of, you remember?
No, go just start. And,
All right. So first one, there's a number of posts on social media I've seen that states a Christian does not go to heaven when they die, but they're asleep until the rapture. What does that mean, and is that true?
okay, so first off,
Right out the gate.
yeah, right out the gate. First off, one thing is
Stop
that-
watching social media.
Hey, you read my mind.
Get off
No.
the TikTok.
Okay, so look, the first thing is that when remember this, the Bible was not written to you; it was written for you. And so the Bible was inspired to those that wrote it, not you. And what that means is that when you look at the Bible or you read it, you must understand the context in which it's written. So one of my favorite books in high school was Last of the Mohicans.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Great one.
so-
Great movie. Daniel
But
Day-Lewis.
and the theme of the book was about cultures colliding during war, and there was a hint of feminism there, right? Well, I can read that book, and the author puts the
Interpret.
theme out there, but then I read it and go, well, I think this. Well, that's fine, but that's not what he intended, and that's not what it's about. Can you get something? Yes, but really you're proof texting.
And taking stuff out of context.
You're taking things out of context. So it's the same way with the Bible. We get weird about that. I don't know why.
I think I would speak for people and grew up in church and being there that it's a fear that you're going to misinterpret the Bible. And there are people that are so confidently, loudly saying these things over and over that you believe it.
But I
And
think
you never question it.
and here's the other deal too, man. That leads me to the second point. You did good and didn't even know.
Segue.
The second thing is that I believe as believers, we get comfortable where we're at and what we know, and we think we know everything. But you don't know everything. I've been studying for over 30 years. And I can tell you, I don't know everything. I just don't. And again, there are scholarly scholars, that this is all they've done with doctorates that disagree about certain things when you're talking about theology. So when we talk about this, your listeners, I want you to, and I gave Evan some resources.
We'll put them in the show notes. So
And
if you ever
in the
listen to a podcast,
resources,
yeah.
I put a question there. What is the context, right? Where are they coming from? And so what I'd like you to do is when you do this is to actually do a little bit of work. Stop going to social media and letting them
Some
do
guy
the
on
work.
TikTok will tell me for a minute. I can get it all.
And
sorted
I
out.
know this sounds crazy, but don't be lazy. If you can't spend, and this is just my opinion, and I'm talking to people who are on a journey, not for folks that are getting started and don't really know what's going on, but those that have started their journey and you do know a little bit. If you're going to look at the Bible, then look at the Bible correct. And or when I say correct, I mean in a healthy way, in that I'm not talking about a devotional. I'm talking about you want to learn about this question, right? Well, there's some things you're going to have to do, and you're going to have to figure out the book that you're reading, in the Bible. For instance, if we're looking at the book, the doctrinal book, 1 Corinthians, you're going to have to understand how those second century people lived, what was going on in the time from a historical text, and why Paul was writing that letter.
To Corinth.
Yeah,
To the
to
church of
Corinth.
Corinth.
Why was that happening? And if you can figure that out, then you read the entire book and then go back chapter by chapter, and then you can go line by line, and you'll start to understand where he's coming from. See, the Bible's ambiguous. Whether it's a little ambiguous, I don't care what you say.
I was going to say, people argue that.
Yeah, it does not answer everything. It just doesn't. It wasn't made for that. The Bible was written for us so that Jesus would be established as king, and that Jesus would teach us how we should love other people. That's the thing. And that everyone was grossly inept to understand or follow God, even though they think they were, and some didn't think they were. But his grace and his holiness, if you believe, brought you to your knees and you said Jesus is Lord. That's what the book is about. First thing is he is the king, right?
You're not.
Yeah, and you are not.
Yeah.
And so when you approach the resources, approach them from a critical thinking standpoint. It doesn't mean that God is not going to speak to you. He is. But you need to do it the right way and not just pick a verse and say that fits. Because what we do is, Evan and Josh, and I know y'all know this already, but what we do is when we go to anything, but since we're talking about the Bible, I'll use this. When we go to the Bible, we take our experiences, or what our mama and daddy said, what Mammy said, what the uncle said, what the pastor said.
People we look up to and respect.
Yep. And we read what they want or caused us to believe to read.
Mm-hmm.
And I truly believe in questioning what's going on. Because, again, we're fallible. And if you want to understand something, you got to dig to do it. YouTube is not going to tell you that. If someone tells you something on YouTube, then really it's okay. It could be. I mean, it could be factual.
Yeah.
It could, but you got to dig to do it.
Yeah.
And we've lost that.
And I think with those social media things, the idea of that is you hear somebody say something on that, and then you go do the research to question it.
Right.
Or figure out what they're trying to say and challenge that idea or figure out why they said that idea, not just accept it as truth and then keep on scrolling and go to the next thing.
So what I do is, especially when I come to the Bible, or people, I really do. I'm critical, but I don't discount anything. I look at it, and when I hear it, I go, okay, and all right, well, maybe, and then I try to go to it with an open mind that I don't know. Mm-hmm. Even with the Bible, I'll go to it and I'm like, I really don't know. Let's see, right? And then it just takes a little time. And what happens in research is it takes time, and people don't want to really. I don't know that they necessarily want to.
Anything.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, and I think the other thing too is that's so hard is there are so many things now available and resources and books and podcasts,
which is a
they
good
don't know
thing
who
too.
to trust. It is
sure,
but the harder thing is almost discerning, and that's where I feel like as a pastor, I weed through 5 or 10 resources I don't really like or I read as a student pastor to get to the one I would recommend.
Right.
And somebody has to take the time to do that. And so we want to help you if you're listening to this. We're putting this stuff in the show notes.
Yeah.
We'll reference these books and these different things because we've done the work. We've gone through. We can recommend these things and other things you can skip and try to help you to go. But that, again, is self-selecting because we pick the things that we agree with and like. And you're always going to have some kind of bias.
There's one of the books or 2 of the books that I have in there are not Christian authors. They're not.
Yeah.
And you need to have a perspective from historians that are experts in their field, and they're credible, to get a roundabout view of what was going on at the time and what you're reading, right? And the perspective of other people and how it may affect yours. And that's not a bad thing. Yeah. That's not at all. It should not affect the way you believe per se, right?
Your faith
if it does, then
when you're challenged,
you should be challenged, and you should struggle with that. And I think that's the other deal. I'm going to answer the question. I'm going to get to the question.
No, I know.
I think as a believer, I don't think I know this. As a believer, you must wrestle with these questions, and they are hard to wrestle with.
Jacob wrestled with God. It wasn't just an easy thing.
Jonah wrestled with God.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to get technical, and technically. The disciples that were following Christ or the apostles, they didn't believe it either. I mean,
they all scattered.
They had doubts.
They hit the ground.
And they bounced. So we should be critical when we come to these things, but not in critical in that I'm trying to approve or disprove, but critical in the fact of think for myself. God gave me a brain, and I'll do the best I can.
I was going to say, I think you recommended a book to me in middle school called Don't Check Your Brains at the Door. Do you remember that book, Josh McDowell?
Yeah.
So I haven't read it in 30 years, but I'm going to put a link in there and see if you want to go back. For kids, it really was something that was the first time I remember you speaking as my middle school pastor, and I was always kind of a more nerdy kid anyway, and I was like, that's something I want to know more about.
Yeah.
And I read the book, and that starts all these different things of doing it. Josh just brought out his Bible.
So I was actually going to talk
here.
about this Bible. So one of the things that has really helped me in my journey in teaching these kids in middle school and making sure that I'm doing justice by the Bible and everything that we've just talked about. So we went to the Youth Pastor Summit, me and Jonah, last spring, I think, over in Dallas.
Conference training education for youth
Super
pastors.
awesome time. Bunch of great speakers and everything. Well, one of the things that they handed out was these Bibles they had a section for people who had just started their youth pastor journey, and they gave these Bibles out. And for a while, I just kind of had it sitting on the shelf. I was like, I can find the Bible online. I don't really need a hard copy. Well, then I opened it up one day, and one of the things I love about this particular Bible, it's a teenage study Bible, but at the beginning of every book, it gives a context of who, what, when, where, and why, and the important stories that are in it. And I use that a lot when I'm teaching the kids and telling them stuff, whatever we're teaching on that week.
Right.
We talked about, when you were talking about 1 Corinthians, that's what got me thinking about this, because we just talked about that a few weeks ago. And I was able to go tell them, like, we're talking about the Church of Corinth, this letter that Paul wrote.
Right.
And just why he was writing that. What is the context of what is going on and why this is important. And then we get into the lesson we're discussing. And then we go back and try and figure out, okay, well, how does this apply to my life? How do I take this out into middle school next week at the lunch table?
Yeah, and by the way, do it in 30 minutes with the shortest attention
Yeah,
spans in human history.
That's terrible.
So it's really,
It's a
and I have to
challenge.
take it and condense it down,
Yeah,
to 20, 30 minutes of talking, but that has helped me a tremendous amount in not only helping these kids understand it, but for my own understanding.
You always learn more as you teach.
I tell them-
you got to study and grow. And
I tell them all the time, is like, I don't have all the answers. I'm learning in real time,
Right.
just as you are. I do a lot of research on it throughout the week so I can bring it back to y'all in a concise form. But like, y'all should also be seeking out this knowledge as much as you can. And I know in middle school that's hard for them to grasp that concept.
Yeah,
But
totally understand.
yeah.
But again, just to say to you, and I've said this before, you impacted my life as a middle schooler. I didn't know everything then. I didn't learn everything then. But you helped me to go on that journey, to point that direction. Justin goes, Chip goes, go. There's all these people in my life, and that's for you, Josh. I'm so thankful you choose to do it, because you chose to be a middle school pastor. You could have done
That's
anything
tough.
you want. You
Ooh,
do. It
that's
is.
tough.
And all three of us were at one point. It's very
fun.
rare.
It's a tough deal.
It's fun.
It
And
is.
I think that with that, I think that's great. And I think if you're, not praying and not seeking, especially when you're studying and you're doing those things, man, you're doing a disservice to what you're saying. And you got to be honest about that. Again, the Bible is a little bit ambiguous, and it doesn't answer everything. There are questions that you're going to have that won't be answered. And I'm going to answer some of that at the end of when we stop.
There we go.
And you have to learn. There are some things you're going to, and I can't tell you what they are because I'm not going to give anything away. You got to figure it out yourself. But there are some things that you are not going to get the answer for, and they're going to hurt. And you've got to decide what you believe and what you don't. And, when you approach this book, you don't have to be a scholar. So I don't want anyone to miss that. It's that the book was for you, not to be a scholar.
Right.
You are held accountable in the light that you have. My light is different than Josh's, right? I sought to do this. You know what I mean? I sought to understand some things I didn't understand. I'm seeking to understand things I don't understand and may not ever understand, right? But at the end of the day, I have to resolve that Jesus is Lord. He was crucified and rose again. He was the King. And I either believe that or I don't, because faith is faith. And I know that when you're looking at it from a apologetics view, that is an excuse. But really, excuse or not, you either believe or you don't. And there are some things in logic that don't make sense. Or things outside of logic that don't make sense. There's a lot that does, but you still have to choose.
You ultimately going to have that faith.
Yeah,
You have to
but
have
know
faith in
that this is
something.
not, you don't have to be an academic to do this. The Bible was written for you.
Right.
Just when you read the Bible, you need to understand how you should approach it, right? You can't look at a verse. Cults start on verses. Denominations have started on verses. I'll go right to it right now. I'll go back to this question. I remember reading the question, something about hell, something about someone wrote in and said,
Which we got a couple here. Some questions deep. I know Jesus forgives everyone who comes to him, but some people are really horrible people.
no, not that one. We'll get to that one.
All right.
What's
Given the
other
term
one?
Satan in the Hebrew Bible.
Yeah, go there. Okay, go
All right.
slow with that because
Here
I'm
we
going to answer that question as we go. I saw that question and I was like, okay, good. I really do. Let's talk about this. So hit that one.
All right. So
and I'll
this
tell
was
you when to
submitted.
stop. We'll kind of read through it. And I'll tell
Break
you
it
when
down.
to
I
stop.
like it. So somebody sent this in. Given the term Satan in the Hebrew Bible is a title meaning accuser, not a proper name or cosmic villain, and that early Judaism had no concept of hell as a place of eternal torment, how does the modern
Okay,
church...
stop right
Pause.
there. All right, let's back up to the Hebrew word Satan. That is true. It can mean the accuser, but in Genesis, it's almost as described that he was an angel of light. And when I mean angel of light is not good. It was just the way even though he was represented as a serpent.
Morning star?
It was the morning star. Yeah. And remember, we are not first century people.
Right.
We do not speak Hebrew. We do not understand their class. We don't understand their legends, their folklore. Right. We don't know their literature. We can study it, but we still didn't live it. It'd be like them coming in now.
So I'm going to give you a great example of this.
Go with that.
Earlier, Josh quoted a Deion Sanders clip that he showed me yesterday.
Yeah.
Imagine trying to explain to a first century person a meme that's something on the internet.
Oh,
that
the Michael Irvin clip.
Oh, sorry, Michael Irvin. Yeah. But then why that's funny because of the context of knowing who he is as an NFL player, and he's a sports commentator. What are sports? What is ESPN? And all these things that we take for granted because we swim in it, we live in it every day. But in that culture, in that time, we can't put ourselves back in their shoes of what everything would have been.
And to answer the question, hopefully the person is listening. You are correct, an accuser, but remember, what is the context of what you're trying to say? Yes, that is true. But what's the context? The next thing is that read that second part about hell.
Judaism has no concept of hell as a place of eternal torment.
Okay, so, man, this is deep. So this is true in the concept of the way we believe in what we call hell. Mm-hmm. So Judaism, some of it, and the culture itself, I wouldn't say Judaism altogether, but the culture in itself was emphasized a lot in Greek culture as well. So hell actually, didn't become a thing until probably the 3rd or 4th century, and then really got going, during the Middle Ages. But it was still based around Greek mythology, if you will. Now, that doesn't mean that hell is not real, and I'll get to that.
Yeah.
All right,
Hades,
it's just
right.
It's our definition.
Yep.
Their definition, which I think it says that in the question. I'm not sure. They didn't have a concept of hell, but they did have a concept of eternal annihilation. So, in other words, the soul doesn't go on anymore. Where Plato
ceases to exist.
Yeah, well, Plato was the first to establish the fact that there was a soul. And he believed that the body was so nasty and so gross that why would anybody want anything to do with that? Your soul is, I'm not saying he said it's pure, but I'm using that word.
Yeah.
And it goes on to exist somewhere else. So some sects in Judaism believed that, especially the Sadducees, believed that when you die, period. There's no afterlife. The Pharisees believed in resurrection, right? So with that being said, there was no hell in the way we look at it, but there was annihilation in the way they looked at, spirituality. And, it's a toss-up about the question is partly right, but it's not totally accurate.
Sure.
Do you see what I mean?
And that's where it gets so nuanced and it's so many things.
Yes.
It takes years of study and doing this stuff where, yes, you can access it, you can do it. But again, you probably watched one TikTok that gave you these words to say.
Or you read books, which is cool.
It could be, right.
It's cool.
But there's always more. So
there's always more. Okay, keep going with that.
Continues on. So, how does the modern church justify the doctrine of a literal devil in hell?
Okay, so there is a literal devil. There's a devil. And Jesus spent time with him. He spent 40 days with him. The Bible says in Revelation chapter 20, that he will be cast into the lake of fire. That is hell. Mm-hmm. Regardless, it says that him and his followers will be cast into the lake of fire, right? There is a devil, and he roams about as a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. Paul says, resist him, right? That God will give
to kill and destroy. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you're tempted, even though that may not necessarily be the devil, because in context, Paul's not necessarily talking about the devil. He's talking about tempted by things. God will give you a way to stand up underneath it. The devil is real, but I would say this to add on to that. I believe, this is Greg's opinion, this is not the Bible. I believe that the devil really doesn't have to do much because we're already cursed. We blame a lot of things on the devil, but we've walked in sin. And the only thing that helps us or washes us clean is Jesus' grace. God's grace is what does that. So we don't really, the devil doesn't have to go, I'm going to tempt him, right? He doesn't. All he got to do is chill and drink some coffee.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? We're going to do, we'll just do ourselves.
Yeah, his job's
So,
easy.
yeah. So, I mean, but there is, and if you're saying literal, if the question is literal in that he sits at the desk with us, no, but there is an evil phenomenon that we call the devil, and they called the accuser. It's not a metaphor. It's for real. However, the Bible doesn't spend a lot of time on it. So we only know a little bit about that. All right, so keep going.
So just real quick on that, the Bible recap. Have you heard of that? You seen that?
No, I
So
haven't.
she
I
goes
haven't.
through the
Not
Bible
yet.
in a year. Josh is listening to it, something that we talked about before. But she says, don't shout where the Bible whispers.
Right.
And we like to pick and choose. Because you talk
We
about
do.
cults and doing that. Of
We pick and choose.
something that stands out to us, and we like to blow that up and make it the thing or the biggest thing, and then the huge overarching message of the whole Bible gets pushed to the back of what we kind of like. We have a
Right.
bias. So the question continues. A very well-written, thought-out question. Jesus, a first-century Jew, preached without referencing the New Testament that didn't exist at the time, and used terms like Gehenna, a real valley outside Jerusalem associated with death and desecration, not a supernatural realm of punishment. And this was written before Justin's message. We talked about before that he hits on this. It's a great message. If you didn't go back, check the full thing out in the show notes. Isn't today's concept of hell more a product of medieval literature like Dante's Inferno and evolving church tradition than anything grounded in the actual text that Jesus taught from? Wouldn't that make the modern devil and hell less a literal reality and more a projection of human fear, guilt, and a metaphorical reflection on humanity?
Okay. All right. So let me go back to where the question went to. Where did you start at?
Let's see.
Jesus.
I should probably have
That's
this in front of me. I'm sorry.
It's all good. So Jesus, a first-century Jew, preached without referencing the New Testament because it didn't exist.
Right. So that has nothing to do with the question.
Right.
I don't understand that because
I think they're just saying that he wasn't pulling things from the New Testament because it wasn't written.
no.
Yeah.
He was pulling from the culture, and then also remember that Jesus was not just because he was God, because he as a human he went through the same things we did. He was scholarly because he spent a lot of time to learn things that most poor people would not ever have the chance to learn. All right, so
Memorize the first 5.
yeah, so that question is really, I mean, that part of the question is really weird to me, and nothing about the person. If the person's listening, don't take that the wrong way. That part to me doesn't go with the rest. Go.
Which goes back to understanding that context of the time, because certain people were privy to
Yes.
education and certain
Yes.
levels of education.
Very
Yes.
small
Yeah,
amount.
continue.
And that plays into the part of hell, and we'll get to that. Now keep going, keep going.
All right. Jesus used terms like Gehenna, the real valley outside
Okay, so
Jerusalem.
Gehenna, you can find out about Gehenna, and this is just one. But again, I don't want to give away a bunch of stuff because people need to learn themselves, right? But it's 2 Kings chapter 23, and I think it's verse 10. But read chapter 23 in 1 Kings, and it'll tell you what Gehenna is. And to make a long story short, what Gehenna was a valley, and it, long story short, they would sacrifice children and or people to the god Molech. I can't say that in Hebrew. That's not how you say
we'll go
it,
with
but I can't pronounce it.
We're not going to correct you.
Yeah, so that's one of the references. But if you spend time, you will really figure out what he was talking about.
And the other thing, too, again, the context, every person listening to Jesus would have known that.
Yes.
It would have been their culture. It would have been
Yes.
what they grew up in. They would have all immediately been like, oh, Gehenna, that's a horrible place. You never want to go.
And so I'm going to
Darkness.
go to this.
Yeah.
So people base doctrine on this, and they should not. All right, so here's an example. So what you're saying, if you're listening, the person that said the question, you're partially right. Yes, Gehenna was a horrible place, and it was used in context for people to understand that, hey, I don't want to be in this place. There were scholars and a while back, I'd say at least the 19th century, if not before, that said it was a place. It was a garbage dump. They burned trash. That's not true. There's no evidence
Really?
for that. Yeah,
I've heard that before.
Yeah, there's
Okay.
no evidence for that. But there is evidence, and it is known that they did sacrifice to another god. Right. So when he said this, remember the parable of the rich man and the poor man.
Yep.
Right. Most people, a lot of religions base their doctrine of heaven and hell off that parable. And the truth is, ooh, I'm about to stir it up.
Ooh.
It's a mistake because it's a parable. Remember when I was talking about context?
Mm-hmm.
In the context of things, what Jesus was telling them was a story that they knew. The rabbis knew the story. And remember Jesus in context. Jesus was talking to religious people. Yes, he was talking to the masses, the poor people, the lepers, the people that didn't have anything. But he was concentrating on the religious because the religious were elite. And he was trying to prove a point. The story is not about the rich man burning in Gehenna. The story is about the rich and the poor. And you said it a minute ago, Josh. And if you don't put it in context, right, then you're going to read hell into that. It does not have anything to do with hell in context. It has everything to do with the privileged are just as bad as the poor, and nothing can keep them from hell. Because remember, not hell, but nothing is different about them. Let me rephrase that. Nothing is different about the rich than there is the poor. That's the point. And people in the time, those rabbis and or elite, thought that because they were well-to-do, that heaven or the afterlife, not all, or where they were in society, they were better than or were privy to the afterlife and not poor people.
Yeah.
Well, that wasn't but that was a thought. And what Jesus was doing in the parable, in a parable that they understand, we don't understand this, and a story that came from books you probably don't read, and rabbis knew it, tells me that he was talking to the elite saying, hey man, check yourself. It didn't have anything to do. It didn't have anything to do with hell
all the time, and we don't say there was a literal house that was built on sand.
No,
and the house on the strong foundation. You get that it's a metaphor, it's an allegory, it's a story, a parable.
And you can't base doctrine on an allegory or a parable.
Right. And
if you go and look in the New Testament, and you were talking about the word, what we call hell, or theirs was Gehenna,
multiple
the valley.
words.
Yeah. So you'll see that that's probably discussed about 11 times, right? So again, the concept of what we believe or have been taught in religion about hell, you're probably not going to be hung over a fire by your genitals.
Hope not.
And women that committed abortions are not going to be sank and feces up to their neck, and the babies that they aborted are not going to be throwing stuff at them. I'm serious. That was they taught that. I mean, that was taught in the Middle Ages. And even beyond that, right? So but there is a hell, and that is separation from God, right? That's straight what that is. So you don't have to say anything about fire. That is true. God said so, right? So that first part, I used the parable to talk about the literal hell because he's right, or she is somewhat right in that it wasn't, the hell that we know, right? Keep going from that part to the last part of the question.
Absolutely. So, isn't today's concept of hell more a product of medieval literature like Dante's Inferno?
Yes, some.
An evolving church tradition than anything grounded in the text that Jesus taught?
No, not really. I mean, yes, and that, yes. We were taught certain things from the Middle Ages, especially around the 3rd or 4th century. I mean, I said Middle Ages, before the Middle Ages, the 3rd and 4th century, and that moved on. Man, we could stay here forever. I could tell you the authors. I could tell you the authors that did that, but we'll just move on. But there were big guys like Origen. He was a big component of Christianity. He wrote. There's a bunch of guys that wrote. That's why I'm saying in the 4th century things started to change a little bit, right? Because remember, Jesus had not come back yet. So there's questions that they're asking and going, well, he's not back yet. Well, how do we deal with this? How do we deal with this? Do you see what I mean?
Yep. Oh, yeah.
So, yes, they are correct in that it is a middle-age taught thing. But the last part of the question, read the last part of the question.
Sure thing. Wouldn't that make the modern devil in hell less a literal reality and more a projection of human fear and guilt and metaphorical reflection on humanity?
No. The guilt, if you will, especially, I can't tell anybody what the Spirit does. But if you're talking about Scripture, when a person repents, that is part of you realizing your humanity. So, yes, there was a time, I know in the 19th century, I think you and I talked about this before, where there were pastors, or they would do revivals.
Yep.
and Jonathan Edwards.
Yeah.
And I think it's William Goodwith. I may be wrong on the name. I think it's Goodwith. They did, the hellfire and brimstone. They weren't the only ones, but if you're talking about people who changed,
Sinners in the hand of an angry,
the Great Awakening, then
you're gonna be a spider dangling over, and you're on the
you're on a
edge.
tightrope to hell. Yeah, those kind of things. Yes, you are correct. But the last part of your question borderlines, the way I read it, and I may be wrong, and you may not have meant it this way, borderline Gnosticism. And Paul, John, Peter, they all dealt with Gnosticism in their time. And you're talking about 2nd century people. So it just goes on. And Gnosticism could be considered now universalism. Mm-hmm. I mean, because they're almost the same, but there's different styles of them. And in that
silent G on the front, Gnostics.
So yes, hell is a reality in the sense that being separated from God is punishment. The other thing is that it could be true that we are annihilated, right?
Yep.
So, if you will, your soul is annihilated. You are not going to live forever, right? That's still hell, right? Now, I mean, in the as close as the interpretation as you can get. So our little word hell does not encompass what really, what really goes on. And the other part I would say is that no one's come back from there to really tell you what's up. Now, you can get on YouTube and talk about people that saw hell, and I'm not going to discredit them. Maybe they did, and
right.
Maybe they did. And if that's what gets you to Christ, I'm cool with that. And who am I to question what anyone, if they really went through that,
right.
that. But on the other side too, I haven't met a person that they were like, man, this is just straight legit. Here's the facts, and you're not going to. That's one of those deals where it's like, wow,
you're going to put your faith in something.
So it's a good question.
Yeah,
but some of it, you are right, is true. Some of that is true, but then some of it is conjecture. So, no, the facts are there is a devil. The facts are there is a hell. Separate yourself. And Jesus was teaching the people in the light that they had, right? Yep. So I hope I answered that one okay.
You did a great job.
All right, go back to the first one.
Okay,
I learned a lot.
We're almost to an hour already, so we're gonna have to.
All right, we'll fly.
We got it. But real quick, we'll put link in the show notes. Go find these books. These are ones that recommended. Greg has resources.
And the scriptures.
If you
put the scriptures
deeper,
in there.
Absolutely. Go
but
find
when you read the scriptures, read the chapter to understand, or read the whole book, then read the chapter in context.
We will also link in the show notes. I will give you a link to this Bible because I think that would be helpful
Absolutely.
in some people's journeys.
Good place.
Cool. That's cool.
So I'm going to lump these three together about heaven, Greg. We're
all right, go. Yeah.
Swing on a more positive note. So
go.
People, a lot of questions about heaven. Our wedding vows end with till death do us part, but do we believe that we'll be reunited with our loved ones in heaven? And if we are, will I see my spouse? How does that work?
Okay.
Same follow-up. Does marriage exist in heaven? Will my kids know I'm their parent? And then I thought I had one more. Do our loved ones in heaven feel sadness when they look down and see what we're doing or going through? Or are they happy and they don't think that they worry about us anymore?
Okay, so
heaven questions.
All right, here we go. Marriage. No, you will not be married in heaven. Matthew 22:30. And then I'll send you some links for them to study all that. Yeah. Remember, read the chapter. Understand where they're coming from. It's not just in Matthew. There's more than that. So I'll send you that. I think another's in 1 Timothy. There's a few. There's no marriage in heaven. Jesus says so. That's why I'm referring to Matthew 22:30 because that was Jesus that was talking about marriage.
Is that when they tried to stump them when they had 7 husbands and 7 wives?
Yeah. So the other part of that is yes, you will know your spouse. And I know this is weird, okay? I can't answer this. You will know your spouse because the biggest reference to, and this is probably going to answer another question, is in Luke when Jesus looks at the thief on the cross and says, today you'll be with me in paradise, right? So this is probably going to answer another question is that, when you die, do you go straight to heaven? Now there's 2 views on that and we'll get to that in a minute, but this is another verse to say, hey, will you recognize, my spouse or my kids? That's one of the verses that people go to. The other verse is John, I think I wrote this one down, John 21:12. And then 1 Thessalonians 4:13 through 18. And there's more. I don't want to give it away because I want the listeners to go
do the work.
I want the listeners to go and do the work. Don't take my word. Challenge me, honestly. Critically think for yourself. But what does Greg know anyway?
And some churches will never say that because they don't want you to question them. They want you to know we're the authority. We're the ones that have all the answers. You trust and believe us. Religion. Don't ever question. Right.
Yeah, and that's religion straight out. And the other was what it said, heaven about kids.
Kids, or do my
marriage.
loved ones look down on me? Are they sad? Are they
Oh
seeing
no,
me?
there's
guardian angel kind of.
unfortunately there's no scripture for that. I really can't answer that. There's nothing that says that anyone looks down on us from heaven.
That's kind of
we could go into a
modern
history
concept.
thing.
Right.
Well, we could go into a history thing. I can tell you where it's from, but we don't have time.
Right.
All right, go.
Do all dead people stay in the grave until the rapture and then they meet God, or is the moment that the soul leaves the body you go to heaven?
All right, so if you look at Luke 23, 39 through 43, 1 Corinthians chapter 15, and 1 Thessalonians 4, 13 through 18, there are two views on this. There is a view that you go to sleep and you wake at the judgment. There is another view that says when you die, you go to heaven, right? And this is complicated without getting into it, but in Jewish culture, it shifted. We talked about this earlier. Some thought that there would be judgment. You would die and then you'd be judged. That's in 1st and 2nd Maccabees. In the 4th Maccabees, you can see where Jewish culture shifted a little bit.
And those were religious documents.
Yeah, those were
Jewish.
Jewish.
In the Bible.
Yeah, they're not in the Bible, but they were Jewish literature that they understood, like the Book of Enoch. It was written later, but these guys knew these stories, right? So we don't. And that's why I'm saying when you approach this, you got to be careful because you don't know everything. And you're not going to know everything even if you research, but you are going to get a grasp of where these teachings are coming from, right? So I'll say yes to that question.
There you go.
And then you figure out what you believe.
So I think I mentioned this podcast Bema that my friend told me I was listening to and kind of started this about the rabbi. The other thing they said that I really thought was helpful was the more you read the Bible, the more you study, the more you learn. It's like if you've lived somewhere and looked out a window or into a house with one window and you go to another window and you see this different perspective. And it's like, oh, there's a piano in there I never saw because it was against the area. Oh, there's these different things that you pick up on and learn. And you accumulate all this knowledge and all these things where you start to understand and realize and flesh it out more, but you can't start there. Nobody starts there.
No.
You've built it up over years. Josh, you're learning more. You're continuing to grow. I'm done. All of these things you're designed
Look, man,
to build
Dr.
on
Bob
what you've
Utley, he's a mentor of mine. And I would suggest, I would recommend, again, this is my opinion, which is tainted.
Sure.
All right. And y'all don't have to do this. Look up Dr. Bob and his free lessons online. Now, he's old. He's an older gentleman. He'd probably get mad at me if he heard me say that. But he truly, I like him because he's been teaching the Bible and has 3 degrees. And, he's a doctor and a theologian, a good one at that. And he'll tell you after 50 years of Bible study, he'll tell you on the phone, to your face, wherever you are, that he's had to change his thought process because he was molded a certain way. And so he has to approach the Bible in a way that he is teachable. He will not be what he says, a Christian who says, this is the way, that's it, right? And I don't mean anything outside of believing in Christ. I'm saying these type of questions, right? So don't get me wrong. Jesus is the way. Jesus is the life. He is. No one gets to the Father but through him. So don't think that I'm saying that
the
that's what he's saying.
non-negotiables, but there's other things.
There's other things, heaven, hell, all these things that they're debatable, and you have to work through that. And the other thing is, I've set a reminder here. There are 3 views of hell. The traditional view, which would be, you burn in hell, and then the conditional view, and then the
annihilation.
Yeah, it's conditional immorality.
Okay. Gotcha.
And then universal reconciliation. And that's all I'm going to say on that. If you want to know, then go read it. And ultimately, you have to decide what you believe. You do, right?
Yep.
Keep this in mind. There is separation from God. And God says in Revelation that he will separate. He will judge, right? It says so. You can read it yourself. That's not what Greg said. But John also says that God is love. And although love is multifaceted, for me, again, this is me. I am not an authority. But after all this time, God is holy and he is just. But God is incredibly patient and he's incredibly merciful. And for people who never heard Jesus' name, I just don't believe that he would throw them or annihilate them in a place because they never heard.
If they didn't get the opportunity. Yeah.
God is love. It says so in John. He is. And I know love. You discipline your children out of love. You do. And I think one of the ways you can look at this is how you see children. I'm not saying, folk out there,
children, yeah.
Folk, I'm not saying that there is no separation from God. I'm not saying there's a quote unquote hell. There is. I mean, there is. But I also know the Bible talks about the nature of God. And the reason why he broke the old covenant and established the new covenant in Jesus was so that all men would come to him. Because the Jewish sect failed so miserably. It had to be broken, and he brought all men to him. But God is merciful. He is. If he wasn't, we wouldn't be sitting here right now. Because that's what we deserve.
Yep.
Even the scholars, period.
Everyone. Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. So, when it comes to that is part of my worldview. He is patient. Therefore, we should be as patient. And that's tough. All right, keep going with
that's tough. No, I think that's a good spot to end on.
Okay.
That's a good note. Josh, you figured it all out? You got all the answers now? You feel good?
Not even close. I got more questions.
And that's
I
a
can
good
sit
thing.
here for 3 hours.
And that's why we want to bring the wolf on, to be able to help challenge thought-provoking stuff. We really do appreciate you, Greg. And
so, man, I love being here. It's been fun.
If you want to do some of that work, if you're intrigued, if this is stuff you're wrestling with, if you're sending these questions,
I'll be glad to come back and talk about some other stuff.
We're going to have you back on again soon.
You'll have to come back.
Absolutely. Thank you for listening. Thanks. Check out, again, the messages. Been great. The series Justin's been doing, the podcast. We're answering more questions next week. Come back for more. Thanks for subscribing wherever you get it, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and we'll hope to see you next week. Bye-bye.
Yeah.